Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
And you think there is sexual harassment in the United States, in the United States Congress in Hollywood. Wait till you hear what they're doing in Cuba. And, of course, Pocahontas. Can you believe this? I happen to love this. I am cracking up watching this. It is quintessential Trump. The only thing wrong with it is that it's allowing the media to cover it and not stay focused on Al Franken and John Conyers and all the other. But still, there's a reason for it. It's classic Trump. It's quintessential Trump. Media still hasn't figured it out. So I, once again, will explain. I will try, for I don't know how many umpteenth times I've done this, to explain Donald Trump to the drive-by media. I don't think they want to get it. I think they love this state of perpetual outrage in which they live, because I think they've convinced themselves that most of the rest of the country is in a constant state of personal outrage. And maybe they are, but not over the things the drive-bys are outraged about. The drive-bys are one of the primary reasons people are in a constant state of outrage. Anyway, it's great to have you here. The telephone number is 800-282-2882, and the email address, if you want to. I check subject lines. That's how because folks, I mean, not counting the spam, we get 10 to 12,000 emails during a show here. And it's just, it's impossible for anybody to read them all. So I randomly check subject lines. But I do check them. And that's lrushbo@eibnet.us. Okay. On the death anniversary of Fidel Castro, children in Cuba are forced to praise Fidel as every girl's boyfriend. The Cuban state publication Havana Tribune has published a video of young children reciting a poem in honor of the dead dictator Fidel Castro, thanking him for making us men and calling him every girl's boyfriend. Now, the Havana Tribune is based in Miami. Well, it's not. There's the outlet reporting on this is based in Miami, and it notes that the children in the video, and there is a video. I'm not going to bother you with it. I'll just tell you what the line is. The children in the video, mostly girls, do not appear to be older than 10 or 11. They are what's called young pioneers, children whose high grades in school forced them into the Communist Party at an early age. They're advanced intellectually, supposedly, so that they can earlier in life grasp the concepts of communism sooner than their classmates. The video appears to have been published as a commemoration of Castro on the anniversary of his death. Although the event occurred back in October, we're just now hearing about it. Now, for the record, we know these things here at the EIB network. The age of sexual consent in Cuba is 16. But Cuban girls can marry at age 14 with parental approval. You know, I think Epstein may want to build a home there. I mean, you never know. The children are reciting a poem called Song to Fidel by communist Cailda Oliver Labra. Now, as you know, the NFL has many players who are taking a knee during the singing of our national anthem. They find it offensive. They find America offensive, and they're very troubled by it. Well, here is how the poem that these young 10 and 11-year-old girls being forced to recite to Fidel Castro. Here are the closing lines. Thank you for being true. Thank you for making us men. Thank you for caring for the names that liberty has. Thank you for your dignity. Thank you for your loyal rifle, your pen and paper, and thank you for your manly groin. This is what young girls in Cuba are reciting On the death anniversary, children forced to praise Fidel Castro as every girl's boyfriend. Now, remember Cuba and Venezuela. These are places that American liberals idolize. These are places American liberals dream about. The locations of several utopias. I wonder what the feminists would say about this and how they would excuse it. By the way, I'm told Twitter is blowing up. I'll tell you, folks, some of this stuff is I'm just getting sick of it. There is apparently a children's book depicting a gay Santa in a biracial marriage, and now a gay nativity scene is being popularized called Gay-tivity, two Josephs kneeling over the baby Jesus. And there's an article in a feminist publication called Refinery 29 describing the scene. What if it wasn't Mary and Joseph who met their child that night, but instead Murray and Joseph? Or Marty and Joseph? Because after all, they say Jesus had two fathers. Remember Heather Has Two Mommies? The little kids' book that was being forced on kids about 15 years ago in the New York public school system. Now, Jesus had two fathers, of course, God and Joseph. And therefore, there's not a woman in this gay-tivity scene, and yet a feminist group is publicizing this. But this is the kind of rot that's permeating out there on social media that is further obscuring and blurring reality and tradition and it's just this never-ending quest for people who don't consider themselves to be normal to try to change that and be considered normal. And it is, as I say, it's blowing up Twitter, but I don't know how. I don't know if it's being massively supported or not. And I just wanted to alert you to the fact that it's there and you might be, remember, the cutting edge here, and since it's early on, you might be seeing this or hearing about it later, and I wanted you to have some advance notice of it, because it's the kind of meme. Remember back in the era of homelessness, when it was a big major political football for the left, Mitch Snyder and the Creative Center for Creative Nonviolence in Washington, Martin Sheen, all these guys kicking homeless people off the sewer grates at night sleep to show solidarity. Back then, they imagined that Mary and Joseph were homeless. It was a way of romanticizing and promoting homelessness. Mary and Joseph were homeless. Why, they arrived and they had to stay in a manger, sleep on the hay. I mean, people wouldn't give them a hotel room, what have you. It was just absurd. And it is yet again another attack on aspects of Western civilization and decency that knows no bounds. So now the gay-tivity, which, by the way, you know, more and more American cities for a while there banned nativity scenes because it was forcing Christianity on non-believers. It was a violation of the First Amendment. You're forcing your religion on people. I guarantee you that no such objection would be made if your town decides to have a gay-tivity scene with Jesus in the cradle and two fathers. And if you object to that, you'll be the bigot. You object to that, you will be the racist, and whatever other name-calling gets into gear. Yesterday at the White House, some reporter, the White House briefing, asked what possible political advantage did Trump see in calling Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas. Now, folks, I have to tell you, this is right out of my playbook. I absolutely love this. Here is Trump. He's honoring Native American code talkers, which were a very valuable group in terms of transmitting messages and decoding coded messages, transmitting them during times of armed conflict. And Trump had them to the White House to honor them. And I know how this happens. I know how Trump's brain works. You know, he's in the process of honoring these people. There's a script. He's learned it. It may even be on the teleprompter, but he decides to go off the script because a synapsis fires in his brain. Something reminds him that the Democrats have a fake Indian among them named Elizabeth Warren. And so while these Indians are there, the code talkers, Trump decides to point out that, hey, you know, I like you guys. Now, we have one of you in the Senate. We have Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, and then all hell broke loose. Pocahontas, which happens to be a real name of a real Native American person, somehow has now become a racial slur. And Trump has continued his known bigoted ways. And this reporter said, what possible political advantage did Trump see in calling Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas? Well, we're seeing it right now. The drive-bys are collectively once again making fools of themselves, trying to claim the word Pocahontas itself is a racial slur, when it's not. And they also look stupid by not understanding or asking about what this really is about. We have a United States Senator, Elizabeth Warren, who made up her heritage in order to get a job at Harvard. She claims she is 132nd Cherokee, and the evidence for it is that her mother or grandmother or somebody had high cheekbones like the Indians did. Now, why isn't that the real outrage? Somebody lying about being something that they are not. All Trump is doing is pointing it out. And you can see this is not done. The left does not have their sacred cows attacked like this. And when it happens, they lose it. They go bananas. So what the reality is that a day after all of this nonsense, it is being driven home to many people that Elizabeth Warren lied about her heritage to gain status in the world of the academy, which is obsessed with identity politics. That's the political advantage. The political advantage is taking an event that happened that constitutes, once again, phony baloney, plastic banana, good time rock and rollerism by Democrats and making it widely publicly known. And this is what Trump does. He simply attacks their sacred cows. He pierces political correctness. He refuses to accept the lies and the phony constructs that they create in order to protect themselves. I explained this back in December of 2015, almost 2 years ago. I identified how Trump plays the media by provoking an outrage for various reasons. Let's go back and listen. It's about a minute and a half, and this sums it up well.
You were here long before any of us were here.
No. Audio
he is playing the media like a Stradivarius. And I'll tell you, folks, for all of you people who have complained and whined and moaned about the media over the years and how unfair they are to Republicans and how unfair that makes the whole process, and what are we going to do? You need to be studying Donald Trump. This latest quote-unquote outrage from Trump is a perfect example of how he plays the media, how he knows exactly what to do and how to do it to own their attention and airtime. He says things that he knows will drive them crazy. He says things over and over that he knows will drive them insane. And then when they go insane, he doubles down on it and drives them even crazier. He also knows that his audience is in on what he is doing. He knows that a lot of Americans agree to a certain extent with things that he says. He also knows he's the only one reaching those people. And then he sits back and watches, no doubt with a huge smile, the media cover what he says over and over and over and over again. Then they analyze it over and over and over, and they talk about it over and over and over again.
Which they are now doing. Now, a lot of people say, you think Trump is ever bothered by this? You think Trump's worried about what? No. That's the exact opposite. Trump knows what he did. He did it because he intended to do it. He wanted this reaction. He's not in the White House sitting around with his associates and his advisors thinking that they stepped in it or they made a mistake and trying to figure out a way out of it. They're getting a good laugh out of it. Trump isn't the problem here. Trump is not the guy who lied and made up something about himself that isn't true. in order to get a job at Harvard and then become elected to the United States Senate. Trump is not a phony. Trump is not unhappy with himself and thinks that he's deficient in some ways, like Elizabeth Warren obviously does, and has to make things up to make herself feel better about herself, to get attention or whatever. Here's how it then manifests itself. Here is Trump setting off a new round of faux outrage. This is yesterday, hosting an event honoring Navajo code talkers of World War II.
You were here long before any of us were here, although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas. But you know what? I like you because you are special. You are special people. You are really incredible people.
So these guys are standing there. There's three of them there. They're standing there. They're receiving the honor. And here's Trump, and he goes off on, you know what? You were here long before any of us, although we have a representative in Congress who was here a long time. They call her Pocahontas. Actually, it's Pocahontas. Because she's a fake Native American. Elizabeth Warren is. She's a phony Native American. Well, exactly as I told everybody how this works back in December 2015, the media circled the wagons and began outrage about a racial slur.
President Trump issued a racially charged insult.
The National Congress of American Indians called it a slur.
Racial slur.
A racial slur. He is obsessed with this idea, this particular slur.
Using a racist slur. A racist slur. Mindfully using racist terms that is just disgusting.
If he's not a racist, and if those comments are not racist, then the term has no meaning at all.
He never misses an opportunity to pander to the certain section of his base that responds to these kinds of racial attacks.
It's offensive. I call him the Archie Bunker in chief.
I mean, what do you say? That's so not okay.
That's Brooke Baldwin. I mean, what do you say? That's so not okay. What's racist about it? Whatever it isn't racist. You people in the drive-bys are going to have to dig deeper and come up with something less cliched and reflect. This isn't racist. I mean, there was an Indian woman named Pocahontas. The racism is owned by Elizabeth Warren. The identity politics is owned by Elizabeth Warren, by you people on the left. You are the ones totally consumed by race and identity politics. And then when you get caught after phoning things up, then all of a sudden, whoever caught you is the racist? Elizabeth Warren herself was so mad she was near tears. Coming up. Don't go away. Nope. Got to break. Go to break.
The President of the United States can...
I'll tell you, AP got their wigwams in a bunch here over this. The rest of the drive-bys fit to be tied over Trump's racism and sullying a sacred house, the White House, and sullying a sacred ceremony the way he did, mentioning Elizabeth Warren as Pocahontas. For far as she's concerned, yesterday on MSNBC, she was asked to respond to Trump's racial slur.
It is deeply unfortunate that the President of the United States cannot even make it through a ceremony honoring these heroes without having to throw out a racial slur. Look, Donald Trump does this over and over, thinking somehow he's going to shut me up with it. It hadn't worked in the past. It is not going to work in the future.
He's not trying to shut you up, Pocahontas. That's the last thing he wants to do. He's trying to expose you. Like he's trying to expose all of the frauds in the Democrat Party and on the left. Not trying to shut you up. How are you? Welcome back. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh and the EIB Network. By the way, fireworks up on Capitol Hill. The president tweeted, and he's got a meeting up on Capitol Hill with Chuck and Nancy to talk about tax reform and coming together on a compromise. And before he left, he's on the way now, gigantic motorcade on the way to Capitol Hill. Before he left, the president tweeted, I don't see a deal to prevent a government shutdown in this whole thing. And one of the things the president's demanding is that they get this budget stuff done so that there are no more threats of government shutdowns, which become a typical Democrat trick. with every new budget resolution or, heck, any other piece of legislation that comes down the pike. And he's asked for language in the tax bill, another piece of legislation for language that would not permit or would prevent a government shutdown. He says he doesn't see it on his way up there, and therefore he doesn't see a deal in his view. And Chuck and Nancy decided to cancel a meeting with him. Given that the president doesn't see a deal between Democrats and the White House, we believe the best path forward is to continue negotiating with our Republican counterparts in Congress instead. Joint statement here from Chuck U. Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. Rather than going to the White House for a show meeting that won't result in an agreement, we have asked Leader McConnell and Speaker Ryan to meet this afternoon. Now, Trump raised the prospect of a potentially disastrous government shutdown, saying he could not envision a fiscal deal with Democrats to avoid federal closure. He said, meeting with Chuck and Nancy today about keeping government open and working. Problem is, they want illegal immigrants flooding into our country unchecked. They are weak on crime, and they want to substantially raise taxes. I don't see a deal. So once again, Trump is simply calling them out. He's simply calling them out in advance for what he knows they intend to do. He's calling them out honestly and straightforwardly on what their plans are and on who they are. To me, this is Donald Trump on a roll. This is not the kind of thing you would get from any other Republican president or otherwise. They just don't call the Democrats out on their phoniness or their hypocrisy, nor do they call Democrats out on their true agenda. And Trump is exactly right. They do want the country flooded with illegal immigrants and refugees. And the best illustration of why is the recent gubernatorial election in Virginia. Not only did a number of immigrants, illegal and so forth, enter the state in droves, and some of them probably voted, then you had the governor legalizing the vote for felons. So Trump simply calls them out. When they are not allowed to get away with their lying, their obfuscation, with their usual tactics, then they call a halt to it. And Trump is just identifying them. And folks, the attention on this now is occurring because Trump dared to relate Elizabeth Warren as Pocahontas in that meeting honoring the Navajo code talkers. And so now there's focused attention on what Trump is doing. This is not accidental. It's not happenstance. It's not Trump going off script. It's not Trump unprepared for the job. This is Trump, the politician. He's got some serious things he wants to get done. The Democrats are standing in the way, as they always do. The media never portrays the Democrats as the obstructionists they are. It's the other way around. So Trump makes something happen that focuses even more attention on him. And while that attention is focused on him, he launches a salvo, this one at Chuck and Nancy, about how they don't really want a deal. They don't want a deal avoiding government shutdown. They want illegal immigrants to be able to continue to flood the country. Not only is this accurate in terms of identifying them policy-wise, it's also, I think, part of the campaign coming up in 2018. The beauty of this is identifying the Democrats and the liberals as who they are. You know, yesterday I made an observation about Al Franken. And I said, it may not be bad that he hangs around. May not be bad that he stays in there. May not be bad that he doesn't resign. May not be a bad thing if Democrats don't force him to quit. Why? Like everything else that this program is about, it has consistently been about exposing liberals for who they are since it began 29 years ago. I mean, there are many things we try to do on this program each and every day. There are many objectives, many of them professional, broadcasting related. Others are political. Others are cultural. But if there was an overriding theme, if a sense of purpose to the program in a political sense, it would be to educate and inform people about who liberals are. And one of the best ways of doing this, so you've got Al Franken, you've got John Conyers, you have massive numbers of liberal Democrats, sympathizers, donors, now caught up in a massive anti-woman issue, sexual harassment, potential, possibly rape, certainly abuse. The vast majority of people who have been accused involving in this is Democrats and leftists. And yet they claim we are conducting a war on women. They claim that we don't care about women's rights. They claim that we are anti-woman. Look at how they treat them. Look at how they treat women. Look at what they really do, not what they say. And so having this situation where everybody and their uncle is demanding that Roy Moore leave the Senate race, and if he wins, that he not be seated. At the same time, the Democrats are circling the wagons around two of their prominent elected officials and doing everything they can to keep them in office. And I think exposing that is a great step, a significant step in trying to inform people who may be apolitical, low-information voters exactly who the Democrats are and how phony they are. And one of the best ways to deal with them is to not believe them, is to be suspicious of them. They've got the media on their side. They get away and have gotten away with so much. The objective of this program is simply to expose the left for who they are and what it is. And having them circle the wagons and try to get away with the very things they try to run Republicans out of office for, to me, has the potential, not saying it's going to work, but it has the potential of being educational. It has the potential to be a teachable moment. This is all, to me, it's all about elections, and it's all about a voting population that's as informed and educated as it can be. And I just believe there has been a very ineffective effort, even by conservatives and Republicans, to identify liberals and Democrats for who they are and what they stand for and what happens when they win, which is not much that's good. Well, it's the same thing here with all of this focus on Elizabeth Warren. And by the way, let me give you the truth of this story. A lot of people, in fact, Mediaite has a story today that says Elizabeth Warren's Native American controversy started with Harvard Law School. That's actually not true. People believe that Elizabeth Warren wanted to get a teaching gig at Harvard, and so Harvard aided her in discovering that she had 1/32nd Cherokee blood, making her a minority, which made it easier for Harvard to hire her. But this actually, Elizabeth Warren and her Cherokee heritage, this whole story began years before that. I have here in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers a story from the Boston Globe, May the 2nd, 2012. That's 5 years ago. An excerpt. She acknowledged that for years before she joined the faculty at Harvard, she had been classifying herself as a minority professor in a directory of the Association of American Law Schools. That directory included Elizabeth Warren on a list of minority professors from 1986 to 1995. On Wednesday, remember now, this is back in May of 2012. On Wednesday, Pocahontas told reporters that she listed herself as a minority professor to connect with others like her. People for whom Native American is part of their heritage and part of their hearts. There aren't a lot of people like me in law teaching, and so I just thought I might find some others. So Harvard Law School did not start this BS about Elizabeth Warren claiming she was 1/32nd Cherokee. She started it. This is a significant distinction, because the general consensus is that Harvard started all of this because they wanted to hire her, and that they found an opening by way of somehow discovering her Indian heritage. She started this. This whole thing has been her idea. She started it years before she got into Harvard by listing herself as a minority professor. And there hasn't been any evidence other than her citation of a female relative with high cheekbones. But even at that, folks, how cheap is this anyway? 132nd Cherokee in order to be hired as a law professor at Harvard or other places when she clearly is not, and then she gets called out on it. And somehow this is racist. Somehow this is abusive on the part of Trump. And you see, it is. When you don't let the left get away with their schemes, when you poke holes in it, when you burst their bubble, they react like stuck pigs and come after you. And they start accusing you of the same cliches they accuse all of their opponents of, and at the top of the list is racist. So anyway, Trump does this, focuses even more attention on himself. He knows how to play the media like a Stradivarius. And in the midst of all this attention, then he gets to something that's really mattering to him, really important to him, and that's this tax bill and how Chuck and Nancy are trying to gum up the works, that they're the ones wanting the option of a government shutdown. They are the ones that want continued illegal immigration. This is what Trump is focusing on today. This is the message Trump is trying to enable people to see. And it all begins with him taking a shot at Pocahontas yesterday in the White House, and the media, clearly clueless, dutifully followed their script with their fake, phony outrage over Trump and causing all kinds of attention on Twitter, social media, and everywhere else. To now the end game, Chuck and Nancy want the government to shut down. They want the option to shut it down, and they want continued illegal immigration. Just happens to be the issue Trump was elected on. It's a very dangerous thing to think you're smarter than Trump, and it's a very dangerous thing to act as though Trump's the big buffoon, not knowing what he's doing. Quick time out. We'll be back after this. Yeah. You mean the Consumer Financial Protection? That's just a money laundering scheme. You know, all that was a way for an independent agency to fine financial institutions and then give the money to left-wing causes like Planned Parenthood. It's nothing more than a money laundering scheme, but the question is not what they were doing or what they do, what they're designed. It's not the question for this bunch. Let me get to that in the next hour. On this Elizabeth Warren stuff, there's two things here. It's important. The story is that Harvard started all of this about Elizabeth Warren being 132nd Cherokee. They didn't. She did. She started this much earlier. And let me tell you why. Don't forget, political correctness is a disease that has consumed the entire left. Harvard, constantly under assault for not having enough minorities on the faculty. So here comes Elizabeth Warren. Hey, I'm 132nd Cherokee. And Harvard doesn't even stop to examine it. They welcome it and they hire her. And then they run and claim that they're engaging in diversity. They used Elizabeth Warren as an example to prove that they were not too white, that they indeed did hire minorities. So she claims she's 132nd Cherokee, and that allows other law schools to hire her or to get her to consult or whatever, because hiring a white woman that claims she's 132nd Cherokee in their world proves that they are diverse. All of this, folks, this is nothing but surface identity politics. It has nothing to do with competence. It has nothing to do with actual diversity. It's nothing to do with knowledge. This is simply the way the left operates. You know, she's 132nd Cherokee. She is 32 32nds leftists. You would think that'd be enough for Harvard. But no. Full-fledged liberal is not enough. They had to believe, they had to be told that she had some Indian blood, and just her assertion was enough. So it's a two-way street here, the law schools plus Harvard Law and Elizabeth Warren, and there's a conspire, if you will, and a little bit of conspiracy in order for both parties to win on the basis of some phony made-up fact. Yeah, I'm 132nd Indian. Oh, wonderful, you're hired, and then we can say we're not too white. And she gets to say she has some minority blood, which makes her privileged. And they both use this to the max. And then when Trump comes along and busts their little balloon, why, since it was phony to begin with, they have a cow. Let me grab a phone call quickly. Judy, Lancaster, PA. Great to have you. What's happening?
Hi, Rush. It's an honor to talk to you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Big supporter of you and big supporter of Trump, but I'm a little confused with this whole Pocahontas thing.
Why?
Elizabeth Warren used it as it was a good thing to have an Indian background. And I grew up that, I was taught that Pocahontas, she saved John Smith and she helped in Jamestown. And then later on, the Disney movie came out for little kids that Pocahontas was a good thing.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, the Democrats, this is a racial thing. So why isn't Disney racial? Why isn't Elizabeth Warren racial?
Because that's the only allegation they instinctively, reflexively make. Donald Trump blew up the lie that Harvard Law, the other law schools, and Elizabeth Warren have been putting forward that she's minority and they're diverse. And so that's a racist slur. It's not. You're right. Pocahontas is a heroine. There's no way calling somebody Pocahontas in the real world would be insulting. But to the Democrats, it is. That should tell you something. Stella McCartney has called for fashion sustainability. Fashion sustainability. What do you think that is? Well, hang on. That and much more coming right up. And I'll tell you something else. The fact that Pelosi and Schumer are refusing to go to the meeting with Trump, all Trump did, let me get the tweet again here. Meeting with Chuck and Nancy today about keeping government open and working. Problem is they want illegal immigrants flooding into our country unchecked. They're weak on crime, and they want to substantially raise taxes. I don't see a deal. So Chuck and Nancy get all in a Twitter here, and they cancel a meeting. And what does that do? That proves Trump is right. That proves that Trump is exposing their positions. I don't even know whether they get this, but by refusing to meet with Trump, they're confirming that he nailed it. If Trump was wrong about any of this, then Schumer could say, no, the president misunderstands. We look forward to meeting with him to tell him this is not our position. But no, not that. Old Chuck gets his little toupee up there in a wad, along with AP and their wigwams in a wad, and says, well, that just, you know what? We're not even going to waste time negotiating with the president. We're going to stick with negotiating with McConnell and Ryan. And right, because in Chuck's mind, he can roll them. I said in his mind, he can roll it, but he can't roll Trump. So I'm telling you, all of this is happening with the added benefit that Trump has renewed focus on himself with that allusion to Pocahontas at the Navajo Code conference, the honorarium yesterday. See, people think that Trump goes off script. They think Trump's mind is undisciplined. And they think he's got his own racism and bigotry, so he's sitting there. Here's what they think. I'll tell you exactly what they think in the drive-by media. There's Trump at the White House, and they've got that picture, Andrew Jackson. Of course, they're focusing on that, too, because Andrew Jackson, responsible for the Trail of Tears. In fact, there's a state park where I grew up called Trail of Tears. We ended up calling it Trail of Lumps because that's where so many guys were told no on Friday nights in the front seat of the car. Really, it became Trail of Lumps. That's what we call it. It's a beautiful place. In a Trail of Tears State Park, you're going to look it up. But in Hatscrewel, to us, it was Trail of Lumps because you went out there to park, and if nothing happened, then you got your lumps and you went home. And I don't care what they do to me. This is the point. You know, you've been saying that to me for 25. You know what they're going to do to you if you... Yes, I know exactly what they're going to do to me. They don't have any sense of trail of lumps. They're going to try to turn that into some sort of Native American slur, is what you mean, right? Well, no. It's trail of... Now, they're probably going to... You probably would dispatch a reporter to Cape Girardeau to find out, is Limbaugh telling the truth? Did you guys really call it trail of lumps? Look, I would love to take credit for having made up that name, but I didn't. That's just what it was called. Long before I became old enough to drive a car out there and give it a go. That's just what it was. Anyway, Trump's there. Don't distract me here. Trump's there in the White House. He's got the code talkers there underneath the photo of Andrew Jackson. You think that's accidental? It's not. They think Trump... They one of two things on that. They think Trump is either tone deaf or, man, does he really not like these guys? So then Trump makes the Pocahontas comment, and they think Trump is so undisciplined or worse, that Trump is just mean. Well, what's Elizabeth Warren got to do with any of this? What did she do to him? Why is Elizabeth Warren even in his mind right now? What an absolute buffoon. What they don't get is that Trump knows how to make them bend to his will. And that when they figure that out, because they do now and then, that just infuriates them. So Trump, you can tell by the comment. I want you to listen to this. You tell me, we're going to go back in time if I can find it, audio soundbite, whatever number 1, 2, or 3 Trump in the actual reference to Pocahontas is. Mike, you've got the list there in front of you. Can you help me out here? Do you know what number I'm looking at? All right, here's Trump. Let's listen to this again. And you tell me if you think Trump is going off script here and does not intend to say this.
You were here long before any of us were here, although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas. But you know what? I like you because you are special. You are special people. You are really incredible people.
Does that sound like somebody went off script? No. He meant to say all that because I'm telling you, he knows how to play these people like a Stradivarius. This is what I think some of them might get it and they resent it. Some of them don't get it. I'm talking about media people here. So Trump launches and they follow the script. They dutifully get mad and outraged and start leaning into Trump as a racist and how bigoted and how uncouth and how unpresidential and how unnecessary, how uncalled for, how whatever. Then they go out and they ask the code talkers, did you find it strange that Trump started talking about Pocahontas when he's out there giving you the... Yeah, we did. We found that a little weird. Didn't think it mattered. Fine and dandy. Attention focuses on Trump. He wants the attention. It's like Snerdley just said to me, do you realize what they're going to do? As though I should be afraid of what they're going to do and maybe think next time twice about saying something. No. Trump knows exactly what they're going to do, and he invites it. So do I, but don't tell anybody. This is how I know Trump like the back of my hand, folks. I mean, it's eerie how well I know Trump and how I know why he's doing what he's doing. Anyway, focuses attention on himself, and now what they don't get, I'm talking about the Democrats, Chuck and Nancy and the media, they view average American voters with certain degrees of contempt. They believe that voters are not capable of making up their own minds. They have to be either cajoled or persuaded by talk radio or Twitter or what have you. But and particularly Republican voters, they're not smart enough. This is what the media thinks. They're not sophisticated enough. They can't possibly understand how Washington works until the media tells them every day how Washington works. And, of course, when you're talking about Trump voters, it's the exact opposite. They are sophisticated. They know exactly why Washington works and how, and they don't want any more of it, and that's why Trump was elected. So the media will never understand what Trump has done here. Trump has just exposed Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and their position on this issue. And he did it by calling them out on that issue and their stance in his tweet. Meeting with Chuck and Nancy today about keeping government open and working. Problem is, they want illegal immigrants flooding into our country and unchecked. They're weak on crime. They want to substantially raise taxes. I don't see a deal. And what did Chuck Schumer do? He confirms what Trump says by canceling the meeting. Trump thereby exposes Chuck and Nancy, and Trump's voters catch it. They're watching. They notice it. They don't need me telling them what just happened here. They're sophisticated enough to get it. The media doesn't think the voters are realizing anything here. The media thinks that they're forcing people to question Trump's sanity. They think, the media believe they are succeeding in getting the people, particularly Trump voters, to question him, to doubt him, and to maybe think he's a little off his rocker with this Pocahontas stuff and maybe even a little racist. They are completely clueless. They do not understand what Trump has done here. They do not. This is key to understand, too. In their view, Trump is simply incapable of playing the long game. He's not smart enough. In their view, he's not capable of strategizing a move 2 and 3 days in advance. In other words, the way they think, Trump's not smart enough to call attention to himself with Pocahontas, for in truth, focusing attention on Chuck and Nancy and exposing them on an issue they're trying to slide by on. Trump's not capable of that. Remember, Trump is unsuited. Trump is a buffoon and barbaric and all these other things. Despite now coming up on 2.5 years of Trump outsmarting everybody, winning the presidency, continuing to defy every day the efforts of the drive-by media to destroy him and get him out of office. He's still there. U.S. consumer confidence has risen now to its highest level in 17 years. Home prices are on the rise. Unemployment is way down. Wages are up. The economic news is great. We're probably going to have fourth quarter economic growth in excess of 3% when this gets reported in January of next year. But the Democrats don't see any of that. They think because they won the governor's election in Virginia that it's over for Trump. And they think it's over for them, for Republicans, because of Roy Moore. They're circling the wagons to hold on to Al Franken and John Conyers while still trying to get Roy Moore forced out of the race or tossed out of the Senate if he wins. They are not giving enough weight to the fact that practically all of these sexual harassment perps are big-time liberal Democrat donors, fundraisers, bundlers. So I think Trump is continuing in his own way to run rings around these people. And the funny thing about it is that they see it the exact opposite. And some of the never-Trumpers do, too. The never-Trumpers think Trump is still a buffoon and an idiot and making a fool of himself. They look, why bring Pocahontas? What point does it possibly make? What purpose does it possibly serve? And we're watching the purpose it serves by watching the drive-by media reaction. The same thing is happening with this contretemps, if you will, over the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This is another little liberal enclave that was established by liberal Democrats, including Elizabeth Warren, that was set up as an agency that was unaccountable to anyone. It even had a budget that was unaccountable to the U.S. budget. Barney Frank and Chris Dodd set this thing up, and Elizabeth Warren was the real driver of this particular organization. the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And I went through yesterday a number of descriptions of what it is and how it was set up, but let me just boil it down to the bare essence. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was an independent agency set up in violation of Article 2 of the United States Constitution, which allowed the Democrats to have oversight over the financial industry in America, lending institutions, banks, and you name it. And they were under the guise of protecting consumers. But that's not what this organization did. What this organization did was launder money. It was nothing more than a money laundering scheme. And it had another purpose. The fines that it levied for anti-consumer policies and anti-consumer behavior at these banks, what do you think they did with the money? The CFPB was a pass-through, and the fine money was given to Planned Parenthood, the National Organization for Women, or take your pick of any left-wing activist group. This was an independent agency set up to be able to legally get money from the financial industry and then turn around and give it to left-wing activist groups. And that's what they were doing with it. And that's why they are so desperate to hold on to it. The point is, it's unconstitutional. There is no, and that's the only thing that matters. You know, and the left is caught here because as the controversy has arisen over should it be Mick Mulvaney, Trump's guy that runs this, or should it remain Richard Cordray? He was the director. And the way this thing was set up, the director gets to name his successor. Congress cannot pass a law like this. That's unconstitutional. This thing wouldn't survive 5 minutes at the Supreme Court. The left knows it. Political pressure being brought to bear, and the way they're doing that is trying to discuss the importance of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and what it does and why it's necessary and what happened before it existed and the great things that have happened. None of that matters. Whatever it's doing doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is whether or not the Congress can establish an agency like this that is unaccountable to anybody, that violates Article 2 of the Constitution, and there's something called the Federal Vacancies Reform Act, which allows the president, who runs the executive branch, to appoint successors to people in federal agencies under the executive branch umbrella leaving. This thing was set up to be an independent agency, unaccountable or accountable to no one. Its very existence is unconstitutional. The left knows it. That's why they're hell-bent on keep Cordray named as Leanna English to succeed him. They want to keep this totally under Democrat liberal control so they can continue to use it to launder money and to be as a pass-through so that the money, and by the way, it's not the only organization doing this. Remember the scandal that was discovered, the Obama administration on many of the DOJ fines against culprits? That money was being sent to left-wing activist groups. It's no different, folks, in practice, from Obama's stimulus. Obama announces a stimulus of basically $800 billion, ostensibly to build roads and bridges. But that didn't happen, did it? Where'd the money go? The money went to unions. The money went to states and teachers and union members to keep them employed during the Great Recession. The reason for that is those people need to be employed in order to pay union dues. Union dues are collected from what they make and are sent in a circuitous route back to the Democrat Party in the form of campaign donations. So the stimulus was a substitute for Obama walking over to the Treasury and writing a check for $800 billion to the Democrat National Committee. Instead, you go through the motions of setting up this gigantic economic stimulus designed to fix roads and bridges and build schools, but you don't do that. You give the lion's share of the money to unions, which are then going to give a percentage of that money right back to the Democrat Party. Same thing here with this phony baloney agency. Have to take a break. Be back after this and continue. Don't go away. And lest you doubt me on this, the Obama-era Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has been a Democrat Party donor bank. The bureaucrats working at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau have written checks to liberals at a rate of $593 for every one Republican. Research of donor records maintained by the Center for Responsive Politics reveal that Hillary Clinton was the dominant recipient of tens of thousands of dollars from people who worked at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, followed by Obama, and third was Senator Elizabeth Warren, who had a role in collecting, in creating the agency. She's the number third recipient of donor funds. Overall, employees at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau have donated $115,000 to various Democrats and Democrat committees. That does not include the fines that the CPFB has incurred and levied against institutions, and that money is then given to left-wing activist groups. The whole thing is a sham, folks, under the guise of protecting consumers from evil corporations who want to ruin them. Welcome back, my friends. Rush Limbaugh, half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. We head back to the phones. Fraser Park, California. Mary Ann, great to have you here. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine, and I enjoy speaking to you. It's an honor.
Anyways,
I just love Trump, and I'm just your normal American citizen. But when he comes out with, like, Pocahontas, we love it. I mean, we understand what he's saying, why he's saying it, and it brings a smile on your face when you hear him talk like that, or because it's a certain humor that you have to understand, and we do. And we might be the silent people, but we are behind him 100%.
And you are not offended by that, right?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I even call her that myself. So, it's just, we understand what he's doing.
I do too. In fact, I wish you'd use the right word, actually. Pocahontas. F-A-U, Pocahontas. Yeah. F-A-U-X.
She's the one that did something wrong, not him.
Right. Exactly. She's the phony. Harvard, all of these law schools willing to accept 1/32nd Cherokee as evidence that they're not hiring white people. But I'll tell you, this is interesting, too, that the media gets all offended, and they think everybody is. And then they cover the story as though everybody's offended, that Trump is alone on this once again, isolated in humiliation and embarrassment. And they miss the boat on this with every such instance. I'm glad you called. I appreciate it, Marianne. Joel in Elkhorn, Wisconsin is next. Hello, sir.
Hello. It's a pleasure to speak with you. I'm very excited about it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I just want to let you know I just thanked my dad on the 71st birthday by getting him a subscription to Rush 24/7.
Oh, so, wow.
As a thanks to him for raising me on you, so it's, again, an honor. I just actually am calling today about the Representative Gutierrez retirement story, and a skeptic I am. I thought about why he's retiring now, and I think the reason why is because the Democrat Party, the liberals, being the schemers that they are and the planners that they are, they're going to try to get rid of or have the people retire in Congress and the Senate that have been part of the settlement or the settlements for sexual harassment. And he's up for re-election in a year, and there's no reason for him to retire. He's an Illinois politician.
Well, you may have a point. This is quite. Let me give you the factual details here. Luis Gutierrez is a Democrat congressman from Illinois, and he's a firebrand. And he hates Trump. And he's one of the biggest pro-illegal immigration advocates in all of the U.S. Congress, and has been for a long time. There is no reason for this guy to be resigning Congress when they all think they're on the verge of retaking the House in 2018, because Luis Gutierrez would find himself elevated into a senior leadership position because he checks off all the boxes that you have to check off on the Democrat card that makes you an approved commodity. He is for as much illegal immigration. He is for Colin Kaepernick and all these NFL protests. He is for every stinking left-wing, haywire, liberal idea there is times two. And he's very vocal about it. He's very public about it. And as such, he is at the top of the list of loyal and prominent Democrats in the media articulating the liberal Democrat position. And out of the blue, Luis Gutierrez, it says here in the Politico, a leading national voice on immigration reform. Ha! There's no reform in his idea. He just wants the borders open for anybody from anywhere to come into this country and then register as Democrats. Luis Gutierrez will not seek re-election, is expected to announce his decision today, according to 3 Democrat sources with knowledge of the decision. All of this reported in the Politico. Gutierrez is expected to announce that he's withdrawing his nominating petitions today. Now, you want to hear, he only filed his paperwork for re-election on Monday. So he files paperwork for re-election because there's a time limit, and then changes his mind. The sources say that former Chicago mayoral candidate Jesus Garcia will begin circulating petitions for Gutierrez's post. The spokesman for Gutierrez, Douglas Rivlin, said he couldn't comment. I don't know anything, he said late yesterday. The news will create a frenzy for a seat Gutierrez has held since 1993. So why? I mean, for us, this is excellent news. But his reason for dropping out isn't mentioned anywhere. Not in this article, not in any other article. Now, you have to think that sexual harassment is taking another scalp. Wait, maybe I want to rephrase that. See, that could be racist, couldn't it? That could be insensitive, couldn't it? Gee, did I intend to say that or not? Trail of Lumps had nothing to do with the Indians. Trail of Lumps had everything to do with the feelings of the guys who struck out there on Friday night. Had nothing to do with the Indians. You're just going to keep hammering this Trail of Lumps thing, aren't you? Well, anyway, you know why it's hysterical? Because it's true. It's exactly what we called it. At any rate, so Luis Gutierrez leaving when all these Democrats think they're on the verge of retaking the House 1 year from now. Why quit? Why quit? With no reason given. So it's logical to assume that there might be a sexual harassment or abuse story percolating out there that might reach the surface, and if it did, it might be almost impossible to deal with. With Al Franken hanging on, with John Conyers hanging on, with Pelosi walking the plank to keep Conyers hanging on, with the Democrats doing everything they can to keep that oddball Al Franken in the Senate. Whatever is bubbling up here with Luis Gutierrez, it must be of sufficient danger that there wouldn't be anybody risking sticking their neck out to keep him in the Senate, or in the House, rather. Now, it could be something totally unrelated, but no reason given, you would naturally gravitate to this, since there is so much of this on the Democrat side. Look, I asked you to think about this on Friday or Thursday of last week, or Wednesday of last week, and really stop and think about this for a second. We're talking about it in the abstract here. Sexual harassment, groping, as it applies to Franken, they're trying to tell us or whatever. But stop and think about this. This is really the essence of bullying. It is the active use of power by liberal men over women they consider nothing more than objects. They bully them, they frighten them, they intimidate them, in addition to whatever physical abuse occurs. It happens in the place of employment. It happens where employment and income are at stake. Now, who's doing this? Why, what we've been led to believe are the most sensitive modern men in America today. American male liberals. They're feminists. They respect women. They're all pro-choice. They love Planned Parenthood. They love abortion more than the women themselves do. They are, as we've been told, they are the epitome of what women want in men today. And who are they really? Well, they're not who they say they are. They're not princes. They're not sensitive. They're not caring. They're not feeling. They're not well-intentioned. They're nothing but a bunch of bullies and brutes who happen to physically act out all of those characteristics on women who are powerless. And this is taking place inside the political party, which claims to have the epitome of proper behavior between men and women as part of its bylaws, as part of its very existence, that the real anti-women barbarians are where? Why, they're in the Republican Party, in the conservative movement. Yeah, that's where the real brutes are. That's where the guys who don't respect women are. That's where the guys who have no respect for women's issues and women's rights and women's bodies. And that's where no, they're not. They're at home and running Hollywood. They are at home and running the Democrat Party. They are at home and prominent in the drive-by media. Stop and think who they are, and not think about this in the abstract, but in reality, what these guys are doing. So Gutierrez is announcing his intention not to seek the next seat. And there's another, Raul Grijalva. Secret deal exposes second hush fund on Capitol Hill. Representative Raul M. Grijalva quietly arranged a severance package in 2015 for one of his top staffers who threatened a lawsuit claiming that Grijalva was frequently drunk and created a hostile working environment. He's a Democrat from Arizona. And this revealed yet another way that lawmakers can use taxpayer dollars to hide their misbehavior on Capitol Hill. The Grijalva payout points to another office that lawmakers can use to sweep allegations under the rug with taxpayer money and settlements negotiated by the House Employment Council, which acts as the attorney for all House offices. Did you know that? Yeah, they even have their own in-house lawyers that they don't have to hire. The Employment Council negotiated a deal for taxpayers to give $48,395 to the female aide of Raul Grijalva, who left her job after 3 months. She didn't pursue the hostile workplace complaint any further. That sum, $48,395, was 5 additional months' salary. So that's basically half a year's worth of work. They gave her 5 months severance. She went away, didn't say a word. Raul Grijalva, secret deal. Now, folks, this is the House banking scandal times 10. That was easy to understand. That was where guys could just walk down to the House bank and write a check for $10,000, get cash. They could write a check for $10,000 to their account, whether they had the money in it or not, and were given the cash. It's one of the reasons the Republicans won the place in the 1994 elections. Got to take a break here, though. Be back just a moment. Grab soundbite number 5. Here is Elizabeth Warren, May 2nd, 2012. So we're going back 5 years, 5.5 years. This is in Braintree, Massachusetts. She's at the time a Democrat state senator. I'm sorry, she's a candidate. She's a candidate for the Senate. She held a press conference to discuss her Native American heritage. Are you ready?
My Aunt Bee has walked by that picture at least 1,000 times, remarked that her father, my papa, had high cheekbones like all of the Indians do, because that's how she saw it. And she said, and your mother got those same great cheekbones, and I didn't. She thought this was the bad deal she had gotten in life.
Right. So that is her explanation of her Native American roots. My Aunt Bee was talking to Opie and Otis, the town drunk, one day. And when they had to put Otis in jail, they had to walk by a picture at least 1,000 times. And my Aunt Bee remarked that her father, my papaw, no, I was a papoose once, she's thinking. My papaw had high cheekbones, like all the Indians do. Really? Is that like the Asians all have something and the African Americans all have something? Yeah. My papaw had high cheekbones like all the Indians do, because that's how she saw it. She said, your mother got those same great cheekbones, but I didn't. I got cheekbones screwed. So you're just going to have to take my word for it. And, of course, Harvard said, yes, we'll accept it. We'll hire you, because now we can say we're not hiring a white person. We're hiring a minority. And so this is how this diversity scam works. They create all these rules, anti-white majority. So you got to have enough of this minority and enough of that minority. But then you can't find enough of those people you want to hire. So here comes Elizabeth Warren. Hey, 132nd Cherokee. Right here, dude, right here. Really? Cool. And you're never supposed to challenge it. You're never supposed to demand proof. You're never supposed to demand the genealogical trace. You're never supposed to see the evidence, because these people would not lie. Harvey Weinstein would not lie. Al Franken would not lie. You're never supposed to question what they say. And Donald Trump comes along, calls her Pocahontas, which is the same thing as saying, I don't believe your lily white, no cheekbone face. And you see what happens after that. Fastest 3 hours in media. We've already gotten through 2 of them here, with 1 of them remaining. Make the most of it. Still loaded with stuff. And I got some great global warming things from yesterday I've got to try to squeeze in, too. So be prepared to listen fast. Talent on loan from God. Rush Limbaugh, America's real anchorman and truth detector, firmly ensconced at the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. Telephone number if you want to join us, 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. NFL ratings for Monday Night Football hit a new season low last night. Just when some industry observers were beginning to think that it couldn't get any worse, for the NFL's primetime ratings, it got much, much worse. Last night was the Houston Texans and the Baltimore Ravens. The clash, the game, drew a 6.0 in metered markets. That's the rating, not the share. That makes it the lowest rated Monday Night Football game of the year for both NFL and ESPN. It makes Trump's Twitter shot at the league this morning incredibly well-timed and accurate. Did you see what the president tweeted? At least 24 players kneeling this weekend at NFL stadiums that are now having a very hard time filling up. The American public is fed up with the disrespect the NFL is paying to our country, to our flag, to our national anthem. It's weak and out of control. All of that said, ESPN still won the prime time last night, even though NFL ratings are hitting newer and newer lows. They're still reaching the point here where they're going to have to do advertiser make goods. Either that or going to have to refund money. A make good is you run a free commercial or a series of free commercials until you have made up the value you charged. If you're going to charge, just to use the number, you're going to charge $1 million a commercial, which is not, I'm just making it up an easy number to follow. If you're going to charge $1 million per commercial based on X size audience, if the audience is 500,000 less, significantly less, then you're going to have to give some free commercials so that those eyeballs are reached. Either that or you're going to have to refund the money. They're getting to that stage. I think they already have reached that stage where that's now occurring. That's never good. There's a piece in the Wall Street Journal today by Holman Jenkins Jr. as opposed to Holman Jenkins Sr. And Holman Jenkins Jr. says that the NFL has a lot to learn from corporate America. His point is, and I'm not even going to get the piece and read it because I don't need to. His point is that a CEO with as many blunders as Roger Goodell would have been fired after the first one. In a publicly held company, a CEO with a nagging image problem that can't be corrected has got to go. The corporation simply cannot overcome that. And he says in the case of Goodell, it's not just one nagging thing. It's been a series of things that haven't been dealt with. Starting with the Ray Rice domestic abuse boondoggle. Remember, they tried to give Ray Rice 2 weeks. 2-week suspension. And then the video hit with Ray Rice knocking his wife out cold in the elevator and dragging her out of the elevator in an Atlantic City casino. And when that was seen, oops, and they upped the suspension to 6 games. But despite all the pink shoes, the pink gloves and all that in October, it began a downward spiral, and then suspending some of your famous players, signature marquee players like Tom Brady. It's been, in the words of Holman Jenkins Jr., it's been one mess after another that have not been cleaned up. And his point is certainly is no way that in a publicly held corporation, a CEO would be given a raise with all kinds of perks and benefits after this kind of stewardship. And his point is that the NFL doesn't learn that even though it's not publicly held, the commissioner, unfortunately, has become the face of the league, and that should never happen. The players should be the faces of the league. Of course, that's problematic now, too. But regardless how you slice it, they've got huge problems. I'll tell you what I did. I tuned in last night, Mr. Snerdley. You know, I haven't watched much NFL this season at all because after the first series of flag protests, when I heard the players say why they were doing it, I'm sorry, it took all of the mystique that I had about the game out of it. It didn't make me mad. It just saddened me. Because coupled with the concussion mess and the way the sports media is either purposely or inadvertently attacking the league and the game, I realized this game's never going to be what it was. And it was big to me. I loved it, as you all know. So I decided last night to tune in. I had some time, and I wasn't particularly interested in the game, the teams playing. I mean, neither of them are lighting it up, and it wouldn't matter to either one if they won or lost, which is the case in too many games this year, by the way. But I have to be honest. I turned it on, and there didn't seem to be any pizzazz. There didn't seem to be any excitement in anything. Camera shots of the stadium, the actual action on the field, the play-by-play and color crew, the announcers, this sounded formulaic and stilted, like it was all forced. They just didn't seem. I didn't get a good vibe watching it. And don't misunderstand. I'm not trying to run anything down. It makes me sad. To me, it's another venerable institution that's being successfully attacked and taken down, and in the process of being destroyed or damaged greatly. I've had a bunch of people approach me overnight about net neutrality, discussed it on the program yesterday. And a couple guys, one really good friend in particular, his stepson, is a very well-educated millennial libertarian who nevertheless, a libertarian, you know what those guys are? You know what libertarians are? Libertarians, they want as little government anywhere. In many cases, to an extreme. The only government they want is national defense and border control, and after that, get government out of the way. But this particular millennial, stepson, libertarian, is all for the federal government regulating telecom, regulating the internet. And the reason why is because he is convinced that the government is the only agency that can make sure he's going to continue to get high-speed Netflix. That if net neutrality is rolled back and done away with, that the AT&Ts of the world and the Comcasts of the world are going to be able to charge you through the nose for slower and slower speeds, and you're never going to be able to afford what it would cost to get normal speeds. And so the government needs to come in and keep it fair. And I wrote back a series of answers to questions and observations about this in an attempt to be persuasive. But you know what really got me about it was that even my good friend, I could sense from his notes that even my good friend is on the fence about this, which tells me how successful the pro-net neutrality BS is and how successful it has been. Net neutrality is a horrible name for what they're talking about here anyway. So this is a series of excerpts of things that I wrote back to my friend. Actually, this kind of inspired me to even be more persuasive, try to be more persuasive, come up with more explanations and arguments that would be effective. And one of the things I wrote is tell your stepson that after every piece of legislation designed to keep the costs of cable and cellular service down, the rates have risen astronomically. It's a rite of passage. I said, if you want, I'll go back through the legislative record and I'll show you. I'll show you every telecom bill. I'll show you the McCain legislation designed to lower cable costs. I'll show you exactly what happened to them within 6 months of the bill being signed. The government does not mean cheaper. The government has never meant cheaper. The government doesn't mean equal. The government doesn't mean fair. It never has. What the government means in this context is reduced services and less competence. It is competition that makes prices lower. It's competition that enables innovation, better services. And what this is a classic example of liberals succeeding in making people believe that corporations and industry are the enemy of people, that they are out to harm people, that they're out to financially screw people. In the case of the pharmaceutical business, they're out to kill their customers. And that government is the great fixer. Government is the tamer of these wild financial beasts who want to deprive you of your Netflix and your Hulu and whatever else you watch. It's classic how they have succeeded in making people believe that only the government can fix problems and make things fair. When you look at anything the government has its hands in, it isn't efficient, it isn't cheap, and it doesn't work. Now, one thing my buddy said to me that his stepsons worry about is that his prices will skyrocket if net neutrality is rolled back. And I pointed out to him, do you know that, and his speeds, he's worried about the speed at which Netflix will be able to send data over his fiber optic cable to his house. He's afraid that the internet service providers are going to roll back speeds and charge through the roof for them, and his viewing will be interrupted by buffering or erratic broken connections. And I said, you need to tell your stepson that speeds are already being regulated. Speeds are already being priced. You know, AT&T and Comcast already throttle their customers on unlimited data plans. I don't know how many people know this, but a lot of people go out and buy unlimited data because they think for a single monthly fee, they're going to be able to use whatever amount of data they want. And there will be no additional charge. And that's true, but what people are unaware of is that right now, under net neutrality, because the Obama rules are in place, many of these providers throttle the speed at which the data is delivered to keep their costs down. You may have unlimited data, but they're already, once you reach a certain ceiling, they're slowing down the data speeds to their customers. They're already doing it. And there's no penalty for it. They don't even know that it's going on. It's already happening. T-Mobile, in fact, they got caught. T-Mobile was going to, in their unlimited data plan, was only going to provide data speeds to give you 720p video quality, not even HD. That was going to be the trade-off. You want unlimited data for a cheap price? Fine, you're not going to get HD quality. When that was learned, all hell broke loose, and T-Mobile had to modify their plan. But speed is like anything else. It's like anything else you buy. You pay more for the best. And there's nothing new about it. There's no fairness about it, nor equality. That's not even a factor. They love the UPS example. They love the FedEx example and Amazon. They love pointing out that Amazon ships its packages through FedEx and they're all treated the same. But they're not. They're not even, first place, FedEx isn't even regulated. Number two, you can buy any kind of speed delivery you want. The faster you want it delivered, the more you're going to pay for it. There is no equality and sameness in terms of FedEx or UPS delivery. You pay for faster delivery. Or if you don't want to pay for faster delivery, you don't pay as much and you don't get it as soon. Imagine if somebody proposed delivery neutrality and claimed that all packages would be delivered at the same speed. What incentive would any company have to get your package to you quickly if there's something called delivery neutrality, where you can't buy faster delivery speed? You just have to deal with what, and if there's no competition and if there is literally no pressure on the providers to get that package to you for any reason, you may never know when it's going to show up. And this is what they're proposing for internet service? I don't know. I think this is not that complicated to understand. It's that people aren't taking the time. Prices are rising now. Prices have been rising since prices were established. The idea that net neutrality is going to stop price increases is folly. Net neutrality is not going to mandate that Netflix can't raise prices or throttle delivery speeds. You know, even now with Netflix, you have to pay more for 4K. If you want to stream in 4K, you've got to pay more per month than what you would regularly pay for standard HD picture quality. How did that happen? If net neutrality is designed to stop them from doing things, we're living on a net neutrality now. How come Netflix charges more for 4K? I thought everything was going to be equal. Anyway, I have to take a break here, folks, because time's just racing by. We'll continue with more when we get back. Look, folks, it really isn't that complicated. Net neutrality is a liberal idea, just like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is a liberal idea, just like Planned Parenthood's a liberal idea, just like Obamacare is a liberal idea. What's good in it? What's good about it? Why not be suspicious? Why not let the market work? Let the market work. Why have the government, with people that don't know anything about any of this, start regulating it? Because you know what's going to happen. Whoever gives politicians the most money are going to determine how the internet operates and where the power is there, not the market. You know something else? If net neutrality had been the law of the land in 2007, the iPhone could never have come to market. You know why? Many of you iPhone owners may have forgotten, but the iPhone for the first 2 or 3 years was an AT&T exclusive. You know why? Steve Jobs had demands. He was not going to let the carrier name be on the front or back of the device. He was not going to let the carrier put any of their own stupid gum-up-the-works apps on the phone. Apple was going to control the whole process, the manufacturing, the marketing, the customer service. AT&T is the only telecom that would do it, that would give up total control. Now, if net neutrality had been the law of the land, that would not have been permitted. Apple would not have been permitted to only offer the phone to AT&T customers. That would have been discriminatory. That would have been unfair to Verizon subscribers and Sprint subscribers. But because there was no net neutrality, Jobs had the option to create the best operating atmosphere and circumstances for his product. And look what happened with zero regulation additional. Okay, Jeff in Davenport, Iowa. Head back to the phones. Your turn, sir. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Rush. This is a huge honor. I'm a fairly new listener, to be honest. I'd heard about you, 25 years ago, had some guy try to get me to listen to you, and at that time I was appalled. Didn't believe much stuff, but things changed in the last 4 to 5 years.
Wait a minute. What were you, what you were appalled by me 25 years ago?
Yes. Because I was 25 years younger, didn't believe a lot of the things that were being said, had different views at that time. Well, for the last 4.5 years, I went out on business on my own, and things are different now. Things have changed. I started listening to you more religiously and started seeing a lot of these things that you had said in the past that I'd always heard about started happening. My business now, since Trump has been in office, has exceeded. I am higher this year than I have been in the past 3 years. When I go into a customer's home and I talk to people, I see what's going on in their home. I see what's on their television. I hear what's on the radio. 75% of my new customers this year are Trump supporters. We've gotten into conversations, and they just took on a whole different meaning, becoming a business owner and starting to listen to you, and with Trump into office now. And I'd always said many, many years ago, if Trump ever ran, that's the guy I would vote for. And that was 15 years ago that I'd said something like that. But in my line of work, I have noticed, and I have done nothing different, there has been an increase in my business. And again,
can you give us an overview of the business that you're in?
I have a small water treatment company in the Quad Cities.
Okay, so that's great. So how do you attribute your improved business profile to Trump? How do you relate that or connect Trump to it?
People are spending more money. That's flat, because in my line of work,
so that means there's more consumer confidence. People are more confident about the account. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, I believe that 100%, and because people are spending more money now.
Well, I've got a story right here from the top of the stack. The conference board today, which measures consumer confidence, they've been doing it for decades, said today that its consumer confidence index hit 129.5 this month, up from 126.2 in October. But the point is, the number's relative. It's highest since November 2000. It's skyrocketing. And there's the little parcels, bits of evidence all over the economy that it's real, that it's not the upward mobility and the economic activity is real. It's not the result of people being told that it's happening. It's actually happening, and they are living it. They're sensing it, and that's why they're confident about it. That's what you're seeing, you say.
Yes, exactly.
So in that circumstance, is there anything Trump does that bothers you, worries you, embarrasses you?
Not at all. When he speaks, I feel he is talking to me. He speaks like I do. He says things that I've always wanted to say. And I know there's a lot of people out there that have always wanted to say the things that he is saying now. He's talking like your general folks, just regular people that don't care about the politics if you're one side or the other. They just want a better life. They want to make more money. They don't want to pay so much in taxes anymore. And that's one thing that I'm in fear of as my business increases. Oh, great, here's more taxes that I might have to pay. And that's a reality of it. But I don't get upset with what he says. I'm right along with him. I sit there and I laugh when I hear the thing.
Right. That's okay. And I understand that. And I think that's a vast majority of Trump supporters. And this is what the media doesn't get. They're sitting there, Trump in the ceremony honoring the Navajo code talkers starts talking about Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas. And the media says, this is outrageous. Why, how dare he soiled such a solemn ceremony by bringing up the name of it? And they think everybody's offended by it. And so they begin their coverage as though everybody's outraged by it. And they don't get that most people are like you. They're applauding it, or they're laughing at it, or they're having the greatest time seeing the media get into another conniption fit over it. And I wonder how long it's going to go with the media obstinately refusing to get and understand the connection. And I don't think they're ever going to. I don't think they want to understand it. I think they're afraid of understanding it. And I think they're deathly afraid of becoming part of it. And so, and plus they're all insider establishment types anyway, which makes them inexorably opposed to Trump. Well, look, congratulations on your success. I know it's probably is this in your owned business? Is this your first success track that you've experienced?
I had actually worked for another water treatment dealer for 15 years.
Yeah, but this one's yours. This one's yours. And
this one is mine. I have a business partner, and I am very fortunate enough to have this gentleman. He said, look, I think we can do this, and you run it your way. I have that much confidence in you. I've done business with you in the past. I'll go out with you, and let's make some money together.
Well, good. What I was going to say, once when you're in business for yourself, well, actually, this can happen to you if you're an employee. But whatever. Once you legitimately experience a success track, like me, I worked for 17, 18 years and never amounted to anything. I was nothing but potential. I mean, I was employed, but I couldn't be said that I was succeeding. But there came a time where I was, and I knew it. I recognized it stood out. It was different than anything that had ever happened. It was in Sacramento. When that happens to you for the first time, when you know what it is, you learn what caused it, and you try to stay dedicated and loyal to the things that made that happen, and you don't want to let go of it. You want the success track to continue on the upward plane, the upward mobility that you're on. Now, naturally, everything that goes up is going to come down at times, but on balance, you want to continue going up, and it changes your perspective on things, which is what you are now experiencing. It can't help but do that. It's a positive thing. So congratulations. In the meantime, another obscene profit timeout. We'll be right back. Well, look at this. Roy Moore is up by 5 points down in Alabama. A poll released by Change Research late yesterday shows that Roy Moore leads Doug Jones by 5 points. According to the poll, Alabama Republican Roy Moore is over a 49-44 lead over the Democrat Doug Jones. Third poll from Change Research since the sexual misconduct allegations against Moore first surfaced back on November 9th. They found he has completely erased the 3-point lead Jones had opened up in mid-November. Moore's lead is now just as large as it was right after the story broke. What's changed? They say the largest difference is turnout. Many Republicans who 10 days ago said they might not vote now say they plan to show up on Election Day and vote for Moore. Bingo. When are these people going to learn, these leftists? Look at all of the massive TV that Doug Jones has benefited from, this massive free media that the media has given by virtue of the barrage against Roy Moore. Compared to 10 days ago, this is from the poll, compared to 10 days ago, fewer Republicans believe the allegations against Roy Moore. Can you say backlash? Can you say this has been so over the top? It's 40 years ago. And I think Alabama Republicans are recognizing here that there is a concerted effort between local Alabama Democrats and national drive-by media, and they're simply standing up to it. So the media may end up being its own worst enemy in this circumstance. We'll have to see. You know, polling data is polling data, and sometimes they hit it, sometimes they don't. Fashion sustainability. Stella McCartney, Paul's daughter, basically wants somebody to make sure you wear outfits that you buy more than once instead of throwing them away. Fashion sustainability. Fashion neutrality. Whatever.